And as you're making music at this time, are you collaborating with people? Are people, coming to you for help? Are you going to others for help? Or is it just Tribe's record? You guys are just figuring it out yourselves.
Man, I recognized from the very beginning that it had to be a movement. Like I said, I was a solo artist, but I decided to start a band because I realized that, from watching everything that was happening in the US with hip hop, that one person couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I recognized how Nas could have been successful, but without having a movement around him, he was limited. Also, I had toured before, and I recognized that being able to tour with a larger group made more sense.
Yeah.
Because then I can justify having all these people come out, pay money to come see a show that lasts 4 hours. One artist couldn't do 4 hours without a huge catalog.
Right.
So all of those technical things were happening in my head, and I was thinking, okay, you know what? This needs to be a group, but beyond the group, this needs to be a movement. So from the get-go, I wanted to sign artists. I wanted to produce for people. I wanted to write for people. I wanted to do everything that was possible to establish what we called Afro hip hop at the time as a movement.
Right.
So Tribesmen, then everybody else that came, Oladile, Two Shots, Two Ply, Sasha, Dr. Sid. Man, there were a lot of us. Mist, Sound Sultan,
right.
Dariata Lade, and even other producers and artists. Paul played Diaro, OJB, Jezreel,
Wow.
everybody else. Where we were also in Surulere.
Okay.
That's where my dad's, one of his satellite offices for his technology business was. So he gave me a room in there, which I converted to my studio.
Okay.
That's where Tribe Records operated out of.
Wow, okay.
So everything that we were doing, we would share. So I was that guy, always wanting to share.
Right.
I remember finally downloading Fruity Loops and literally going to hand it to everyone. Gave Omalulu a copy, gave OJB a copy, gave anybody who wanted it. Everybody who was producing at the time, if you needed stuff, Big Low, like everybody, come get it. Like,
yeah.
And then we also had, fun fact, my dad was not related, but probably important. My dad was the first person to bring the internet to Nigeria.
Wow.
Through his technology company. So we had early access to the internet, which also meant that we attracted a lot of people to Tribe, because anytime people came to Tribe, there was free browsing. We had like 6 computers that people could come in and use to browse the internet. So there was that attraction as well. And I think that, I know this is super long-winded to answer your question, but I think that just understanding that one person can't do this, I think was one of the most important things that I had that gave me clarity at the beginning. And recognizing that sharing doesn't necessarily mean giving up your power, because if you can create, you can always create.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're sharing doesn't mean that you're losing anything, because we're building something that's for the collective as opposed to an individual.
Right.
Yeah, I could move to the US and come be a rapper in the US, and maybe I'd be successful, maybe not, right? But we could create this thing in Nigeria and we could own it.
Right.
100%.
Right.
And so when I see everything that's happening now, you can only imagine how it makes me feel.
Yeah. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that because a lot of times we see the music videos, we hear the music, but we don't know what goes on to make that happen. We don't know the people, the hands that were put together, the prayers, the help, the support. So this is really insightful when you talk about Nigerian hip hop. So because you're helping, sharing, and collaborating, I have to ask, have you ever ghostwritten for another artist or rapper?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot.
A lot, okay.
A lot of ghostwriting.
Okay.
In the beginning, I'd probably say, for most of the people that were around me, and this is not me trying to take credit away from anyone, right? And I feel like people are starting to open up to the idea that collaboration, songwriting and stuff like that is normal. That's what happens in music, right? There was a bit of people hesitated to give credit back in the day, but there's any artist that you had seen me around, I had written something for.
Okay.
Some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
It's either I've produced the music for them, or I've written entire songs. If you ever saw me on a collaboration, I probably created the whole song before the artist even showed up.
Wow.
So it's yeah. I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot even before publishing was a thing.
Right.
And I'm not chasing anybody for it now because
Sure.
I mean it just is what it is, and it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Long term for me. So I'm really glad that I was able to, participate in that manner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And back then I'm sure ghostwriting wasn't really much of an issue because it seems as if the intention was to get the quality music out there. Is that correct?
It was an issue if you were a rapper.
Okay.
No rapper wanted to be written for.
Even in Nigeria.
Even in Nigeria.
Okay.
No, it wasn't the culture to be a rapper that people are writing for. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the way that I did it was I didn't present it like, hey, I'm writing this rap for you. It's, hey, why don't you say this instead?
Okay.
Hey, why don't you say that instead?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you see this line right here where you say this? Let's take this whole quatrain out and let's replace it with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, oh, yeah, that sounds better.
Okay.
So it was more co-writing in a
Right.
sense, right? Or I would have already created the song and somebody would come listen to it and be like, yo, this is really dope. And I'm like, do you want it? And they're like, wait, what? Yeah, do you want it?
Right.
Yes. Can you record? Cool. Nobody else has heard this, so get in the booth.
Wow.
And I'll let you listen to the verses, learn, and then re-record it, and so on. Yeah.
And what about like singers or people who kind of harmonized or do melodies, especially at that time? Did you also do their kind of?
It's funny. It's funny. I did it for rappers and singers.
Wow.
And I don't honestly. I didn't learn music professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everything I did, I learned just by listening. So by ear. But somehow I had the. I don't want to call it a gift, but I had the skill
Right.
to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Obviously, I can't compete with the guys that are doing it now because they're taking it way to like, new heights or whatever. But back then, for what was available back then, I was definitely I considered myself like super creative.
Right.
So even for songs, for example, you listen to a song like "You Know It"
Mm-hmm.
by Goldie, right? I wrote every single line in that song.
Wow.
Like I made the beat,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the hook.
Mm-hmm.
She came up with the idea. She was like, "Oh yeah, I want something that's provocative." And I was like, let's see, Nigerian context. Should we walk along with somebody? Yo, she's like, yo, people, oh man, that's too deep. Like, yo, can we tone it? I was like, nah, let's just have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
So created the beat, wrote the verses, and had her, sort of learn her portion of the song, and then she came back and recorded it.
Wow.
God rest her soul, and she killed it.
Yeah.
So and that's how a lot of music that I made back then was created.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of music, yeah.
So for the rappers, were they competitive? Was there a competition, an unspoken competition, despite the ghostwriting?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, if I've written for you, then obviously you're not competing with me, but
okay.
at least not publicly.
Right.
But there definitely was I mean, hip hop is really about it's about the bragging and the swag and everything. Hell, if I'm writing a rap for somebody, I'm writing with that in mind, right? Like, yo, you're the best. I'm the best.
Right.
Is what I'm saying. And so whoever's delivering that is saying exactly that. So yeah, it's just all part of the creative process.
Okay. For more DXR media content, follow us on our socials. More content's on the way.